I'm called Abeja Sara, the Program Coordinator for the Women's International Peace Center, the South Sudan program. Today I'll be sharing with us how the women in South Sudan used technology for advocating the inclusive implementation of the peace agreements. Maybe to give a background on the South Sudan agreement. South Sudan got independence in 2011, and 2 years later, the country went back to war. And this war was followed by the signing of the agreement or the resolution of conflict in the Republic of South Sudan. When that agreement was signed in 2015, it only took 1 year before the country went back to another violent conflict in 2016. So then another agreement was signed, and that was called the Revitalized Agreement on the Resolution of Conflict in the Republic of South Sudan. So that was in 2018. And when the agreement was signed, in the process, women they participated in the mediation, in the negotiation, to ensure that the revitalized agreement or the resolution of conflict in South Sudan was gender sensitive, and there was a specific provision on the 35% women quota. So then, after the peace agreement signing, we had to come back home with a great excitement and hope that we would have lasting peace. However, in the process of the implementation of the agreement, COVID-19 pandemic struck the whole universe, which South Sudan was not an exception. So during that time, we had restrictions on movements, on assemblies, on meetings, but these, as women, we would not just leave the agreement implementation hanging just because we're not able to be meeting, we're not able to meet our targets for lobbying. So what we resorted to was digital advocacy. We would meet through Zoom meetings, although these meetings were quite expensive, but we had to endure because we needed our voices to be heard at all times. We needed to consult our women constituencies. So what we had to do was have Zoom meetings. Some of us were not also digitally competent. We had to teach ourselves on using team meetings, using Zoom and other digital medias of meeting virtually. So it was not an easy moment for us, knowing that in South Sudan, access to internet is not an easy thing. Even power just to charge our computers, only, according to the global reports, only 4% of the South Sudanese population can access electricity. So just imagine how many women can have access to electricity to have their computers or their gadgets charged. But that did not deter us from organizing and having our advocacy using technology. The other thing that we took advantage of was the phones. You know, access to information. Most people get the information in their laps, and using what? They're using the phones. So we could also use social media to send our messages. when one person sends a message, the other ones also on Twitter or on Facebook, we keep sharing, we keep making it more popular. 35% is not a request, but a requirement. 35% is a provision in the agreement. 35% exclusion of women is excluding half of the population in the peace processes. So technology helped us during the time of COVID. In addition, after COVID, we also experienced shrinking civil society, shrinking space, whereby we had conditions, especially on Chapter 5 on transitional justice, which was a very contested issue. So women sometimes will not be granted security clearance for the meetings. So since we could not meet physically, because of the requirement that if there is a meeting of 10 people and above, you have to seek for security clearance. And when the national security sees whatever you are seeking for, the clearance for as for a meeting is not in line with what the government was having will on, you will not be granted security clearance. So all the same, we would have discussions on Zoom, we would have virtual meetings, we agree, and then we come up with statements, which statements we will also share on social media, we will share on digital platforms, and definitely these our statements will reach out to our targeted audience whom we had wanted to reach, with the intention of creating awareness and also creating change. So to navigate through the civic space that was shrinking so much in South Sudan, and then the targeting of the women human rights defenders, we use the digital space to pass our messages. We use the digital space to pass our statements, our requests and recommendations, and also to collect views. We would meet using digital platforms. So in South Sudan, where women have been advocating so much for inclusive peace processes, we also have those hurdles, but to ensure that our voices reach to our targeted audience, even if we're not able to meet them physically, we use the digital spaces. So I think technology, digitalization has had its impact, and we have, as women of South Sudan in our advocacy, we have used it to advance our advocacy on the women inclusion in the peace implementation processes. We've also had setbacks. We've had our colleagues being targeted digitally, our phones being tracked, our conversations being tracked, but all the same, to a much greater extent, digitalization and technology has been of great importance to us, the women of South Sudan, in ensuring that we advocate for inclusive peace processes. As I said, we also had challenges to the issues of digital security, since some of our women human rights defenders' offices could be stormed by the national security. The digital equipment can be confiscated, your data is hacked into, or even just destroyed completely, such that the women rights defenders are not able to get those informations. So maybe what I could recommend on this, as women human rights defenders working in this challenging operating environment would be, I would recommend that most of these women human rights defenders organization should be supported or trained on digital security, because you can be taken out of, stormed out of the blue, and then the information, your computer is hacked into, they forced to open your computer and check. But if you have passwords, you have saved your documents, and you put a password that they cannot open, it means your information is secure. The other recommendation would be the donors, the communities that support the women rights organization to be able to provide funds for buying these external backup documents, like the hard drives, where we regularly have to back up our information and keep it away from the office, so that even if the computers are confiscated, if they are taken away, at least you still have information in these hard drives, which are not also kept in the office. The other thing is we have learned to back up our documents on the cloud, cloud backing. So this one, even if the equipment, the digital equipment have been taken, you can still retrieve your information that has been saved, that you have saved in the cloud. So those are some of the suggestions and recommendations I would recommend women's rights organizations that are operating in challenging environments to be very vigilant on digital security and other ways of ensuring that information is kept and not lost. Thank you so much.